I moved into this apartment a little over a year ago. It wasn't much, just a small one-bedroom on the 5th floor of an old brick building that always smelled faintly of coffee and dust. But it was mine. After my dad passed away, I needed somewhere quiet, somewhere that didn't echo with his voice or the sound of the TV he used to leave on all night. At first, I didn't talk to anyone in the building. I'd nod at the old lady who fed stray cats behind the dumpster, or mumble morning to the delivery guy, but that was it. Most nights, I worked late, freelance coding projects that paid the bills but drained my soul. I was fine with that. The silence was comforting, until she moved in next door. I first noticed her one evening when I was taking out the trash. She was struggling to carry a big canvas up the stairs, taller than she was, her hair tied messily, paint stains on her fingers. I offered to help, and she smiled like she hadn't been smiled at in a while. "Thanks," she said, breathless. "I'm Nora." That was it. Just a name, and then she disappeared behind her door. But the next day, there was a soft knock on mine. When I opened it, she was holding a coffee mug. "I made too much," she said, "and you look like someone who forgets to make breakfast." She was right. I laughed, took the mug, and that was how it started. Over the next few weeks, we talked more, sometimes in the hallway, sometimes through the open windows of our apartments. She painted during the day, usually with music loud enough for me to hear faintly through the walls. I worked nights, so I'd often be up while she was sleeping, typing quietly while her light glowed dimly under the door across the hall. One night, around 2 a.m., there was a knock again. I opened the door, confused. She stood there in an oversized hoodie, holding a half-finished canvas. "Do you ever feel like nothing you do makes sense anymore?" she asked. I didn't know what to say. I invited her in. She sat on my couch and stared at her painting, just strokes of dark blue and white, like a storm. She told me her ex had been her muse, and when he left, she lost herself. "It's like every color looks wrong now," she said softly. I told her about my dad, how I still sometimes heard him coughing in my sleep, even though he'd been gone for months. She didn't say anything, just leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel so heavy. After that, it became a thing. Not dating, not yet. Just two broken people keeping each other company. She'd bring me dinner when she noticed I hadn't left the apartment all day. I'd fix her leaky faucet or help carry her canvases to the park when she wanted to paint outside. Sometimes we'd sit on the fire escape with cheap wine, talking about everything and nothing while the city hummed below us. She laughed easily, but there was sadness behind it, the kind that makes you want to protect someone even when you barely know them. One night, after a few too many glasses, she looked at me and said, "Do you ever think you missed your real life? Like, maybe you took a wrong turn somewhere, and everything since then has just been the long way home." I didn't know how to answer. I just said, maybe this is the real life, the part we didn't plan for. She smiled, that kind of smile that's small and quiet but reaches her eyes. And for a moment, I thought maybe I'd found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Over the next months, it became impossible not to fall for her, not because of grand gestures or dramatic moments, but because of the little things. How she sang softly when she cooked, how she'd stop mid-sentence when she thought of something beautiful, how she'd paint barefoot, muttering to herself about light and texture. She wasn't perfect. None of us are. She'd shut down sometimes, vanish for days inside her room, and I'd hear her crying through the wall. But I didn't ask questions. I just waited until she knocked again. There was one morning, early spring, when she dragged me to the rooftop with 2 mugs of coffee. The sunrise was just brushing the buildings pink and gold. She turned to me and said, "Promise me something. Promise you'll never let comfort replace passion. It kills people faster than anything else." I laughed and said, I can't even get out of bed before noon most days." She just looked at me. "Then start there." I didn't know it then, but that morning would become one of those memories that never really fade, the kind that stays warm even when everything else goes cold. For a while, we existed in this strange, beautiful rhythm. Two people orbiting each other, never quite colliding but never apart. I didn't call it love, not yet. It felt like something quieter, deeper. But then things started to change. It was subtle at first. She became distant, distracted. I'd catch her staring at her phone with a look that didn't belong to me. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd smile and say, "Of course." But her eyes said otherwise. Then one night, she didn't come home. I tried not to panic that night when she didn't come home. She'd gone out before, stayed over at a friend's, or crashed at her studio when she got lost in her work. But something about this time felt different. The next morning, I knocked on her door. No answer. Her paintbrushes were still soaking in a jar by the window. The coffee mug from yesterday, still half full. It felt like she'd just stepped out for a moment, except she hadn't taken her keys. By the second day, I left a note. "Hey, just checking you're okay. Call me." 3 days later, she finally came back. Same hoodie, same messy hair, but her eyes looked hollow. "I'm fine," she said before I even asked. "You don't look fine." She hesitated, then whispered, "I just needed to clear my head. That's all." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something had changed. The easy laughter we shared turned into polite smiles. Our late-night talks grew shorter, our silences longer. She'd start painting, then throw the brush down halfway through and storm out. I'd ask what was wrong, but she'd just shake her head. One evening, she showed up at my door with a small, half-finished canvas. "This was supposed to be you," she said. I looked at it, shades of gray and soft blue, like a storm breaking apart. "Why didn't you finish it?" I asked. She smiled weakly. "Because I don't know what you look like when you're happy." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Because she was right. I didn't know either. After my dad died, I'd stopped thinking about happiness. I worked, I slept, I existed. Nora was the first person who made me feel something again. And now, she was slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. One night, I finally asked. We were on the fire escape again, both quiet, watching the city lights. "Is this about him?" I said softly, "Your ex." She turned to me, her eyes shining under the streetlight. "It's not just about him. It's about me. I don't know who I am when I'm not loving someone who's leaving." I wanted to tell her I wasn't leaving, that I'd stay as long as she needed me to. But the words felt small compared to the weight she carried. Instead, I reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. We just sat there, fingers intertwined, pretending that connection could fix what time and pain had broken. Weeks passed. Some days were light. We'd laugh, cook, listen to old records. Others felt like walking through fog. Then came the night we finally crossed the line between almost and everything. It wasn't planned. She came over after midnight, tears streaking her cheeks. "I can't sleep," she said. I let her in. She leaned against me, shaking, and whispered, "Don't say anything. Just stay." So I did. We fell asleep tangled together, her heartbeat pressed against my chest like it was trying to remind me I was alive. The next morning, she made coffee like nothing had happened. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. For a while, it felt like maybe we'd found our balance again. But that's the thing about fragile things. They never stay still. A few weeks later, she got an email. I was sitting at her kitchen table when she read it. Her hands trembled slightly as she scrolled. "What is it?" I asked. She looked up slowly. "I got accepted." "Accepted where?" "Paris. The residency I applied for months ago. It's everything I've ever wanted." I tried to smile. That's amazing, Nora. She nodded, eyes glistening. Yeah, it is. The silence that followed was heavy, like both of us were afraid to breathe. When do you leave? I finally asked. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I spent the next days pretending I was happy for her, and part of me genuinely was. She deserved it. She'd worked so hard to get back to painting, to feeling. But the other part of me, the selfish part, hated the idea of losing her. I didn't tell her how I felt. I didn't want to be the reason she hesitated. Instead, I started pulling away first. Less texts, fewer late-night talks. I thought, maybe it'd hurt less that way. But it didn't. On her last night in the city, she knocked on my door again. She was holding a small package, wrapped in brown paper. I wasn't sure if I should give you this, she said. Inside was a painting. Small, simple, but perfect. It was the fire escape. The two of us sitting side by side, the city blurred beneath us. You finished it, I whispered. She smiled faintly. Yeah, I think I finally know what you look like when you're happy. I wanted to say something. Stay, don't go, I love you. Anything. But my throat closed up. She stepped forward and kissed me, softly, like she was trying to memorize the shape of goodbye. When she pulled back, she whispered, Some people come into your life to remind you that you're still capable of feeling. Don't waste that. Okay. And then she left. The first few days after she left felt like a hangover without the drinking. The apartment was too quiet, the hallway too empty. Even the air felt different. Heavier somehow, like the world had tilted slightly off its axis. Her door stayed locked. Her plants started to droop. Her mail piled up. I thought about watering them, but it felt wrong, like stepping into a memory I wasn't supposed to touch. I tried to throw myself into work again. Long nights, endless lines of code. But every time I looked up from the screen, I half expected to see her standing in the doorway, barefoot and smiling. She didn't call. She didn't text. And I didn't reach out either. It wasn't pride. It was fear. Fear that hearing her voice would make it real. That the distance between us wasn't just miles, but something permanent. A few months passed. Seasons shifted. The tree outside my window that used to frame her balcony went from green to gold to bare. And one morning, as I sat with my coffee, watching the fog roll between the buildings, I realized it had been 103 days since she left. I don't know why I was counting. Maybe because I didn't know how to stop. One evening, I came home to find a small envelope slid under my door. No return address, no name, just my name written in blue ink, the way she used to write it when she labeled her paint jars. Inside was a single postcard, a photo of the Seine River, soft pink sky over the water. On the back, just 4 words. Still painting. Still living. That was it. No explanation, no promises. And somehow it was enough. I pinned the postcard above my desk, next to a photo of my dad and the tiny painting she'd left me. For the first time in a long while, I looked at them both and felt something like peace. Days turned into weeks again, but different this time. I started waking up earlier. I started running in the mornings, cooking for myself, even reaching out to old friends I'd ignored for years. I wasn't magically healed or anything. I just started showing up again. Sometimes when the light hits the wall just right, I swear I can almost see her silhouette there, barefoot, brush in hand, humming softly, not haunting me, just existing somewhere inside the quiet. It's funny, the way love leaves traces, not the dramatic movie kind, but small fingerprints on your habits, your thoughts, the way you look at the world. I still don't know if what we had was love or just 2 broken people finding warmth in the same winter, but it changed me, and that's enough. Last week, I finally did something I hadn't done since she left. I painted. Nothing special, just the view from my window. The city lights smudged like stars. But as I brushed the last stroke, I realized my hands weren't shaking anymore, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. Not because of her absence or her memory, but because I was still here, still living, still painting,